Amazing. I think we are now live on YouTube. Just a double check. Yes, we are now live on YouTube. So what I will do in a second is I will let everybody who is waiting to come into the room in. So thank you once again. If there's any issues, just send me a private message and I'll pick it up here as well. But thank you and best of luck to everyone. 1 second. Make sure to record.
Hello, hi, good afternoon.
Hello, hello, hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Hello. Just wait for everybody to come into the room. Amazing. Right, I think people will start coming in as we get started. But the first thing to do is say hello and welcome. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Compare the Market Talks Tech event with coding Black females. My name's Timmy. I'm one of the volunteers here at Coding Black Females, and we've got a really exciting event for you guys today. We are very lucky to have 3 panelists who work within the Compare the Market tech team, who'll be sharing their experiences with us today and also answering some of your questions. So without further ado, I'm going to take up less time and just quickly run through the housekeeping and introduce us. So Coding Black Females, for those of you who don't know us, we are a non-for-profit organisation, and our primary aim is to provide opportunities for Black female developers to develop themselves, meet familiar faces and receive support and build relationships through our regular events and our networking. So hopefully this event will help inspire and inform some people today on what it's like to work within a tech team and work within a tech team and compare the market. So just a bit of housekeeping, if I can ask you guys to please keep your mics off and keep your cameras off as well. If you have a question to ask our amazing panelists, if you could put that in the chat function, feel free to comment as well. Comment in there and we'll pick it up and hopefully bounce off of you guys as well. But we do have a dedicated Q&A session, half an hour, which is lots of time for you guys at the end. But if you have a question that is relevant to the topic we're talking about, feel free to ask it then and then. It's pretty chill tonight. So we'll do some welcoming introductions, introduce you to Compare the Market and introduce you to our amazing panelists. And then after that, we will cover 3 main topics. So number 1, what it's like working at Compare the Market, the current technology that they're using, and diversity and inclusion at Compare the Market. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to ask our amazing panelists to introduce themselves. So actually, wait, should I ask our amazing panelists to introduce Compare the Market first and then introduce themselves? So Dowie, could I ask you to introduce Compare the Market, please?
Yes, of course. And sorry for clearing my throat over you there, Terry. I actually thought I was muted, but obviously the hard mute on my headphones doesn't work on Zoom. So I've learned something. Hello, everyone. I'm Dewi, and I won't say too much about myself now because I think I'll get an opportunity to say that later. But I'm a senior manager in data engineering in Compare the Market. And yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of an intro to who Compare the Market are. And more than likely, if you've seen TV or if you've listen to the radio or a podcast, you've probably heard of the meerkats. And that is what we're synonymous with, really, are those furry little rodents. But actually that's worked out really well for us because as an element of branding, it's obviously really recognizable. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we actually do as an organization. So if you've ever been to Compare the Market, and if you haven't, we are a comparison website. What is a comparison website? We started out with insurance. So for us, it's all about giving the customer more opportunity to to see what are the best prices for them over a range of products. So like I said, we started off with car insurance, but now we actually offer a wide range of different products. So we do mobile plan comparisons, we do credit card comparison, we do energy comparisons, so like gas, electric, things like that. We do life insurance and other types of insurance as well. Really quite a range of different products. And coming back to the meerkats as well, one of the things that we've really started to do and build on is our rewards system, which some of you might have received the furry meerkat toys back when we used to do them, and then we stopped doing them, and now we've started doing them again, which I'm sure a lot of people are quite happy about. But while we stopped doing those meerkats, we started doing the 2-for-1 movies, which I think we actually took over from Orange Wednesdays, if anyone actually remembers that. And that's obviously been quite a big success for us. And again, that's another thing which is really important to us as a business, is giving customers another kind of valuable thing, not just offering a service, but a reward for using us and using our services. In terms of our technology teams, so because we offer such a wide range of products on our website, but also on our mobile app as well, we've got a lot of teams that work across a lot of different technologies, and Tula and Esther are actually going to talk a little bit more about that, and I will as well. So I won't go into too much detail now. But as I've mentioned, I look after some of the data engineering teams, and then we have website front end teams that look after our website. We have mobile teams for native app development of both iPhone and Android. And we also have DevOps teams as well, so teams that focus on building our technology infrastructure. Now, in terms of where we're located, so we've actually got an office in Peterborough in the north, and that is our home base office. But we've also got an office in London. That's where I'm based at the moment. Obviously, I'm not based there. I'm actually in Brighton. So I haven't been up to London for a long time. I'm quite looking forward to getting back there at some point. And then we actually work with a nearshore partner, and they're based in Belarus, in Minsk. I think that probably about covers it, because I think we'll talk a lot more about what we do at Compare the Market and things like that. I don't want to try and answer all the questions now, so I think I'll leave it at that. So back to you, Temi.
Amazing. Well, that was a very informative thank you. I think now the best thing to do is ask you all to introduce yourselves. Maybe Tula, if I can get you to introduce yourself first.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us today. I am Tula. I've been working in Compare the Market for about 9 years now as a software engineer. I started off as a trainee, and now, I've just been working there. I think I've worked in 4 or 5 teams since we started. We started off, I think, when there was about 150 or 200 people, and now we've got 700 or 800 people, I think, in the tech department. So I've been there for a while and seen the changes that we've gone through technology-wise and our ways of working, and just quite a lot of change in the industry. Also quite passionate about, sharing my skills and, getting involved in communities just to get more people encouraged into coming into tech from minority groups. So this is a great opportunity for me to visit you guys today, and hopefully it will be useful. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Tula. And Esther, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Esther. I've been at Compare the Market for about 5 months now, so I'm relatively new, and obviously it means I started during lockdown, so I've never been to the office, and I've never met anyone in my team in person yet, which is surprising. I actually didn't really start off in tech. I did more at Warwick, so it was very maths based, but then I did Code First Girls during lockdown, and then applied for a role at Compare the Market through Makers. If anyone's heard of Makers, they do a boot camp for 3 months and kind of get people into tech. So I did what I'm doing, an apprenticeship with Makers at the moment, and it's been fun, and I'm really enjoying it so far. Yeah, and I also, like Tula said, I kind of just feel like it's important for me to kind of spread the knowledge that I'm learning as I'm going, and kind of help maybe kickstart someone else's career in tech, like Code First Girls did for me.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Esther. And Dowie, I think it's best if you wrap it up and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Temi. So yeah, I've been in software engineering for longer than I can remember now, 20 plus years, I think. And I've been at Compare the Market for 3.5, and I started off as a software engineer, junior software engineer, many moons ago, with VB6, if anyone's had the fun of ever working with that. And I've worn many hats, done many different engineering roles. But at Compare the Market, I've been more focusing on kind of operating in a senior leadership role. And when I started in Compare the Market, like Tula said, we were quite a lot smaller, and we've seen a lot of growth in the past 3.5 years, not least in the data engineering team, which I've been in for the last 2.5 years or so. We've really grown from, I think, around 20 people to almost 70 people now. So there's been a lot of challenges around that. And one of the things I think that is super important to me, and I agree with Esther and Tula on this, is promoting and supporting learning and growth in our teams, and working with organizations such as this and others like Code Bar, and Esther mentioned Code First Girls there, which we've actually hosted 2 of in Compare the Market, which was great. And I actually was able to tutor in one of them as well, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I really want to keep doing those kind of things, especially in a senior leadership role. I think it's really important because you have more opportunity to influence things across the business there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this talk today. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, and thank you for introducing yourself, and welcome. So without further ado, it's probably best if we start by discussing what it's like working at Compare the Market. So if you guys could tell me, so if I maybe start with you, Esther, what is it like? What's a day in the life? Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, technical difficulties. A day in the life at, yeah, did you say a day in the life at Compare the Market?
Yes, a day in the life, yes.
So there's some things that differ, but things that are consistent is like stand-ups in the morning with my team, kind of seeing where we're at in terms of our projects and what we're doing. We also have like monthly retros to see what we could be doing better, what we've enjoyed, etc. And bi-weekly guild meetings for more like innovative talks within the team, like what we could, change, or any ideas people have. And throughout a basic day, it's a lot of coding, obviously, to get projects done. There's some pair work as well, depending on the size and complexity of a ticket. And there's also other meetings like refinement sessions, just to kind of go through tickets that are gonna like come soon, and just make sure everyone is on the same boat and understands kind of what needs to be done and the requirements of each project or each ticket.
Amazing. And Tula, someone who's been in the Compare the Market for a bit longer, how does that differ from you? What's different in your role?
I think generally at the moment, most of the teams are going to be working in an agile way. And like Esther has described, most of our days are so similar in that we'll all stand up we'll start with the stand up in the morning. I think probably for me, first thing, because we start our day at 8:30. So I'll probably start with code reviews, 8:30 to 9:30 before I start my day. So we do a piece of work, and then you wait for your colleagues to have a code review of that. So I'll usually start with that first thing in the morning. And then at 9:30, we have our stand-up. So we do our stand-up with the business guys, the BAs, and the product owners there. And after that, we have a tech huddle, where the technical guys or the software engineers, if you've got a problem or you're stuck on something, you can ask the other guys for their opinions on how to solve the problem, or just discussing or giving each other a heads up on stuff that's coming. And then most of the day is obviously coding and, chit chat and all that stuff. Like Esther said, we've got the sprint retros, we've got the sprint planning, we've got showcases and stuff. So yeah, that's probably what a day is.
And Dowie, what about you? How does your day look like at Compare the Market?
It's interesting because obviously I don't do too much coding anymore in the role I'm in. Most of my day revolves around collaboration. And one of the things I love about working in data engineering is data right now, as it is for a lot of organizations in tech, is really important to compare the market. And therefore, we are involved in so many different initiatives across the business. We work with the teams that Esther and Tula are in, but we also work with other data teams. So, for example, data science teams, data analytics teams. So a lot of my day, it kind of rolls around spinning plates and talking to people and trying to move forward with strategic initiatives, support my teams to make sure that they have everything they need, that they're not blocked by any kind of unnecessary pain points. Like, for example, they don't have particular permissions to do something that they should be able to do. Kind of see myself as a bit of a busybody sometimes. I kind of just get around and try and help people where I can. But it's something that I really enjoy, is like collaborating with people, supporting people. And coming back to the coding point, we do this thing in data engineering, which we call innovation days. And it's kind of like a mini hackathon. People can come up with ideas and get the opportunity to code on something that might be quite fun or interesting, new technology perhaps. And recently I did get the opportunity to work and code with one of my engineers on a system that would light up a bulb whenever a build broke, a code build broke, which was quite fun. And it was my first kind of experience writing Python, which I'd never written before. So that was fun as well.
Amazing. Quick question. How often are these innovation days? Are they quite regular, or are they kind of structured throughout the year? How often do they happen?
I'll answer that first if I may, but I think Tula and Esther probably can speak to their teams as well. It's kind of different for all of the different teams. Within my area, we try and do them at least once a month, but it really varies depending on, sometimes everyone's quite busy with project work and they haven't got time to think of an idea, something like that. We have also in the past, and we'd really like to do this again in the future, I think, we've done like day-long hackathons for the entire tech organization. And the last one we did before the pandemic was at Google's offices. And that one's more of a kind of traditional hackathon where a problem will be given and, you split into teams and you can solve it. And then obviously you all go out and have a bit of fun later on, have an alcoholic beverage or a non-alcoholic beverage, whatever is your choice.
Amazing. And then Esther, what about you? How often do you have innovation days within your team?
We have 1.5 innovation days every month, so similar to Dowie. And it's quite fun. You can just work on what you'd like, really, innovation-wise and tech-wise. Nothing that has to be to do with the business or anything.
Brilliant. And then Tula, what about you?
So we also schedule one in for one day every month. So what we do is we put ideas together on a sheet of paper, and then we have a day like a Dragon's Day style where you come and you pitch your idea. So these ideas that don't necessarily have to do with the business of Compare the Market. It could be a new technology, or it could be, an AI thing. It could be anything really. So you pitch that, and then we vote on what you want to work on. And then on the day, the teams just work on that. At the end of that, we do a presentation back to the team or anybody else is available. And then, some of them have come up to be things we've adopted as a company. Some of them are just things out of interest that we just that we just enjoy, things that you'd probably have as a personal project, but you do it at work. So they are really useful for innovation.
Amazing. That all sounds really cool. That sounds really, really cool. A nice segue then is kind of how you've managed to collaborate with your colleagues day to day in this really weird time that you're not physically in the office. How's it been for you guys? How have you managed to continue to collaborate with your colleagues on a regular basis? Dowie, as someone senior in people, how's it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's been a challenge. Like I think it has for everyone. I speaking for myself, I do think that as an organization, we were quite well set up for everyone working remotely. I mean, we kind of had this line manager's discretion rule where Most people, I'd say, in data engineering would work from home at least one day a week. So you'd always have a situation perhaps where someone might be remote and working across offices as well. So you've got Peterborough and London. Quite often we'd have to do cross-office discussions and meetings. So from that respect, I think it was good. But what I don't think anyone realized is Zoom fatigue, and you know how actually it's more draining somehow, like staring at a screen. And I mean, okay, yeah, I like tired eyes and stuff like that. But I just think the difference between even just that 2 minutes you get to walk to a meeting room, or you know, you go to the kitchen and you get a coffee, and then you meet someone that you don't necessarily work with, but you consider a friend, and you get to talk to them. And you know, I found that I've lost a lot of that, and we've tried some different ways to try and improve on that. For example, we use Slack, and there's a Slack app called Donut, which basically in a channel it pairs you with random people, and then you have to arrange you know, at your discretion a random 15-minute chat and have a donut or not. But it's like it's a really nice way to actually get to meet people again and talk to people. And there are some people that I spoke to on that which I hadn't spoken to in, I'd say, 6, 7, 8 months, and it was really nice. So that's been the most challenging thing, I think, for me, has been the kind of personal interaction.
That's amazing. That's definitely relatable. Not being able to speak to people or have that water cooler chat has made the days feel a little bit longer. Tula, how has it been for you? How have you managed to make sure that you collaborate with your colleagues still during this weird time?
I think we have been intentional in making sure we pair in the work that we do. So the pairing is something that we've always done, but now it's so much more important because it's not just now about the knowledge share or the quality of the code, but as well as that, it keeps the team connected and it builds relationships. Because I think one thing that we hadn't anticipated was the difficulty of connecting people, especially people are new in the team. They haven't made those relationships before we locked down. So for people who've been in the business before, they already had relationships with other people, so they always know who to talk to and who to get hold of. But for those people who just came into the company after we'd gone virtual, it was really, really difficult. I can't imagine how difficult it's been for them, I think Esther will say. But I think we've tried to make sure within our team that, you know, we try and get people connected together. With the pairing, you build that relationship. And also Slack calls during the day, you know, instead of making a whole lot of Slack messages, sometimes like, not, it's easier, let's just have a chat. That has really been useful.
Amazing. That leads me nicely on. Esther, how's it been as someone who is brand new to the team and has not actually been physically into the office? How has it been for you? How has it been getting to know or virtually meeting new colleagues and being in a new work environment?
I think it's a bit surreal because it's like I've started a new job, but I've like I said before, I've not met anyone in person or seen the office. So I know I'm working, but I feel like once I'm able to like see the office and like bump into people, I'll probably feel integrated. But it's been better than I would hope, because like getting started, you kind of have meetings with everyone else that's new. You have like meetings across the, like where basically everyone across the company join and they introduce the new people. They send out emails with like people's pictures and like a little bio to everyone in the company. So they've really tried to, you know, make sure that we're introduced to everyone in the company. And I get Slack messages from people in completely different teams from me, like, oh, welcome to CTM. Do you want to have a catch up or like a meeting? I did that with Tula the other day as well. Like, we're just like, we're not in the same team, but we just, you know, had a little chat and it was really fun. I think it's good how inclusive it's been, because I feel like otherwise I might not feel like a part of the company, whereas I do. Like I'm from CTM. I have my meerkat right next to me staring at me right now. So yeah, it's been a good experience, even though it's been during remote working.
That's amazing. It's good to hear that you've had a good kind of onboarding experience, even though you've not been able to physically meet anybody. So that's really good to hear. Moving on. I've wanted to ask you guys, kind of, I know now that you've mentioned briefly challenges with the growth of the team and obviously with the pandemic, but what in each of your experiences has been kind of your biggest challenges so far? Should we start with Tula first?
I think the biggest challenge, I think, for most people this past year is, moving virtual now, having your whole day at home, because traditionally we'd go to the office and you have a dedicated workplace where you just do focused work. But now we are all at home, and at home life happens. So, there's those disruptions, and trying to get a great work-life balance has been the biggest challenge for me, especially in the beginning. I mean, a lot of people would have had that problem, especially if you've got caring responsibilities, if you've got children or you're caring for family. So I think that has been the biggest challenge. But I think as time's gone on, we've had that flexibility built in of what works and what time do you work. You could block hours of, say, I'm not available at this time, so people would know you're not available at this time, and you can do all the other responsibilities, especially at the time when we're also doing homeschooling. It was the biggest challenge. It was really, really difficult, but I know a lot of people went through that, and to be honest, everyone right now is thankful schools are open, I can imagine. But yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges. But we would have a chat with the manager and say, look, at this time I'm just not coping well, can we have a different timetable for me? And a lot of the time, to be honest, it's been really flexible and helpful in trying to get people to adjust to the new normal. So yeah, I think that has been the biggest challenge.
Well done to you for managing to adjust and then also do homeschooling, because I can only imagine how much work you had on your hands there. So well done.
Crazy.
What about you, Esther? I know you've only been there for 5 months, but what has been your biggest challenge so far?
I think perhaps getting to grasp with like the size of the company and all the different teams and the moving parts. I think especially because I didn't have a background in tech, I was kind of naive to the fact that there's so many roles in even within one team. I thought I was just going to see many coders and we're going to code together, but there's like VAs and there's testers and there's also all sorts of people to talk to. I think initially it was kind of hard for me to even remember like who do I go to for this, because it's virtual, so I have to like find their role, find their name, or ask a team member. Whereas maybe in the office it might have been a bit easier because that your team kind of sit around you, or you bump into people and you can just kind of have those conversations rather than having to formally meet them to know who they are. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Well, that's I'm assuming now you've gotten more used to kind of the working format, and it's no longer a big challenge anymore. But yes, Dowie, what has been one of your biggest challenges so far?
I think just to touch quickly on what Esther said there about like trying to find out who people are. I think as Tula said earlier, you do really take it for granted when you've been in an organization for longer, just knowing who people are and knowing who to talk to. So I can definitely understand that. But for me, I think I'm probably going to go to pre-pandemic and talk about making the transition from a more software engineering oriented role into data engineering. And I don't think at the time I fully appreciated the scope of difference basically in moving between those stacks. And it's certainly been a challenge for me to just get my head around all of the themes that you get with data and data engineering. And back when I was an engineer, I'd done some small scale SQL administration, and I could write the SQL query and the database query and stuff like that. But I'd never kind of done anything on the scale of what we're doing at Compare the Market. So that was a really big challenge for me. But I really enjoyed it, because it's like all about learning new things and trying to keep yourself current, and that's something that I enjoy, and I'm working with some really smart people, and I'm having the opportunity to learn from them, which is awesome. So I have not regretted the move.
Amazing. It's great to hear that even 3.5 years in, you're still learning and growing and developing and in your role. To flip the question on its head, what has been your biggest achievement? What are you most proud of during your time at Compare the Market? Apologies, I live right next to a train track, so if you hear that in the background, it's someone commuting. Maybe if we go with Esther, in the past 5 months, what has been your biggest achievement so far to date?
I would say kind of things like this. I kind of dived into like diversity and inclusion initiatives and like signing myself up for like panels and talks. And I think some people were surprised that like 3 months in, I was doing like a talk for like an external, in partnership with an external company similar to this one. So I think that's my biggest achievement, being able to say that I've, kind of made a difference or helped, push that initiative, even though I was nervous and had just basically started. That would definitely be my biggest achievement.
Amazing, amazing. Well, you should be really, really proud. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us today as well. Tula, what about you? What has been your biggest achievement to date at Compare the Market?
I think that there have been many. I mean, I've been there for many years, but I think the one that I think has made the biggest difference for the people working in Compare the Market was we've got a group, a community. So every year we have this pulse survey that takes in a pulse of how are people feeling about working in Compare the Market and what things can be improved, what's not going well and what's going good. So I joined that team, and within that team I was the champion for learning and development. And in that year we worked on getting a personal budget for everyone within Compare the Market tag, £150
wow.
to buy books. So every year you get £150. You don't have to get sign off from anyone. You just go and you buy books, or you buy courses online, or you do whatever you want to do with £150 that makes you a better software engineer or whatever in your role. No questions asked. So that I'm really proud of. And I think a lot of people have taken advantage of that. I've got a library that's growing with books. I think the biggest challenge now is reading all of them. But I've certainly bought quite a lot of books, those books that people recommend to buy, like Clean Code and all those things. So it gives you that access to those books. So this is not just the only budget you get for training. So this is just on top of a training budget. This one is a personal one. Yes, I think I'm really proud of that.
That is an amazing achievement, not just helping yourself to learn and grow, but everybody. Dan, what about you? What has been your biggest achievement to date at Compare the Market?
Just like to say, the £150 learning budget was definitely a massive success. I've been taking advantage of that. I definitely have a library of books, but I also just wanted to say, for the first time that I did this when it was first introduced, I actually took a 2-day weekend stand-up course on the basis of trying to improve my public speaking. And it was quite an interesting thing to do, very different. And I had to do a 2-minute stand-up set at the end of it. So that was quite scary, but I think I've chosen the right career in not becoming a stand-up comedian anyway, let's put it that way. But yeah, my biggest achievement, I think, for me would be overhauling the promotion process for engineers in Compare the Market. So when I joined, the promotion process was very opaque. It was really hard to understand how you actually went about getting promoted, what the process was, and taking a leaf out of Google's book, we looked at a process they used, which was to effectively use the engineering community to decide whether or not someone is ready to be promoted, and to put more power into the hands of the individuals themselves. And what we did, or what I kind of spearheaded and helped move forward, and it's still going today, which I really feel good about, is to get the individuals to write a self-assessment, and then they get feedback from their peers, and then that goes to a panel of their peers, and then it's basically from there decided whether or not they get promoted. And I think personally it's worked out really well, and I think it's given a lot of people opportunities to get promoted that probably either would have just left the business, or maybe wouldn't have even thought about putting themselves forward for promotion. So I think that's what it would be for me.
Oh, well, and congratulations to you as well. That is amazing. What I'm hearing really is that Compare the Market is definitely an employer that listens to his employees and wants to help you learn and grow. So this is really great stuff. I've got another question for you guys, and just a reminder for our guys in the audience: if you have a question about working at Compare the Market, please do put it in the chat function now. We can answer it now, we can answer it later, but feel free to comment and to ask your questions. But I have a question for you. What are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about working within Compare the Market, and also within working as a software engineer or data engineer? What do you think? Maybe if I go to Esther first, let's start with you.
I think within Compare the Market, when I say I work in the mobile team, they're like, oh, can you, get me insurance, or can you things about that? So I'm like, no, I have nothing to do with that. So no, I can't. I think that's one misconception I've had, because I've not been there very long. So if I was speaking to someone in like the tech industry, obviously that wouldn't be the misconception. In terms of within maybe my team or software engineering, I think this is one I actually had before I came, and I mentioned it earlier, just the extensiveness of the team, and like the different roles there are within the team, and the different kinds of teams there are. I just thought, oh, websites and apps. I didn't realize there's so much, and there's so many different kinds of people. Yeah.
Amazing. Tula, how about you? What are some of the misconceptions that you've come up against in your role, and also from working at Compare the Market?
I think, like Esther has said, everybody will assume that you sell insurance. Like, no, we're just a middleman who don't sell insurance. I think that's probably that. But I think also, not just working in Compare the Market, I think in software engineering, a lot of people, you say, I work in software engineering, like, what is that? And a lot of them will probably think, it's a very geeky job, and it's a very difficult job. You have to be the super mathematical or scientific person. So I think that's probably the misconception that puts people off, I think, coming into software engineering, they're not realizing that within IT there's so many roles that people can play, and within software engineering itself there's so many routes that you can take, and there's I think, to be honest, there's something for everyone at some point if people are interested. So I think the route to get into it, people are always assuming it's a very hard route to get in. So these kind of organizations like Coding Black Females is a good place for people to come to know that getting into software engineering is, yes, it's difficult. You've got to put the work in, but it's not impossible. It's something that can be done.
Amazing. That's really nice and refreshing to hear as well. That is definitely really nice and refreshing to hear. What about you, Dowie? Is there any misconceptions, apart from people think that you sell insurance, that you've come across whilst working at CTM, and just during your time, your 20 years of working within your role?
I think, I have to continue the theme, right? I always get my dad calling me up and complaining and saying, I can't work your website, can you fix it for me? But also I get friends complaining to me that they haven't received their toys. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll look into it for you. But yeah, in terms of misconceptions, I definitely would agree with what Tula said there about, software engineering as a thing being inaccessible. I think maybe it was back when I started out, because back then it was very much so you have to go to university, you have to get a degree, and you have to have a maths background. And yes, I think there are still roles where that is perhaps true. Maybe if you want to get into really heavy data science, for example, like having a maths background is really helpful. But at the same time, I think it's awesome now that you've got all of these boot camps getting together, and organizations like Coding Black Females, Esther mentioned Makers, that give people another route into software engineering. And as Tula said, it is, there is a role for everyone, basically. And then what I wanted to say in addition to that, I think, is one thing I've perhaps learned a bit more working in data engineering now, is that the common misconception that data engineering is the boring part of working with data. Everyone wants to be a data scientist and do machine learning, yeah, that is cool. And there's so many really interesting things you can do with machine learning. But what I've learned is actually that there's also a lot of interesting things you can do within data engineering as well. It's just another facet of software engineering. And there's always opportunities for you to kind of learn more and do more with something. Like if you have a particular passion for machine learning, then just because you become a data engineer doesn't mean you can't then look at ways of improving your skills there as well.
Amazing. That's great to hear. That is really great to hear. And that kind of nicely leads me on to my next question. The last question of this little section is, what's one practical piece of advice that you would give to someone who's starting out on their journey into tech, whether a career change or just coming out of uni, or maybe even starting in secondary school and thinking about what they want to do in the future? What's one piece of advice that you would give to them? Esther, I'm going to pick on you again, since you're one of the newest on the team. So what is one piece of advice? 5 months in, what are you thinking?
Two things. The first thing that really helped me was having a mentor. It was really, really beneficial because especially one that was kind of within my team and within like the role that I was trying to build my career in. I think it's important because it's someone you can kind of lean on and you're very comfortable to ask questions to. And also because they get to know you, they kind of are able to help develop you personally and career-wise in terms of where you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go. And the second thing I would say is being proactive. I didn't know that Tula kind of spearheaded the learning budget, but I bought a really, really big Android development book with that. And I kind of literally just went through it in my first month and a half, rather than just, diving in, because I hadn't done Android development or app development beforehand. So that helped me so much. There was things that I was encountering in my team, in my tickets, that I had seen in the book. And I feel like if I didn't just decide, let me get that book and try and work through it, I would have been very lost. And also it was my mentor who kind of suggested that book because she had done it years before. So it kind of all came together to really help propel me in my role quite early on.
Amazing. That's brilliant. And Tula, what about you? What's one piece of advice you'll give someone who's starting out?
I think the biggest trap that most people fall into is the getting overwhelmed about how much they do not know. So I think, be aware, yes, you do not know a lot, but do not let it overwhelm you. It's nobody knows everything. Don't feel like you have to know everything. I think the best thing, or the first thing that you probably need to do is, if you're in a team, just focus on the technology and the tools that you need right now to do your job, if it's just one or two things, and get really good at that. And then with time, you'll get time then to be curious about other things. So it's okay to feel like you don't know everything. If you turn that into a positive and keep it as a curiosity, to get to know other things, but don't get overwhelmed, because what that does is you learn the slow course, you leave it halfway, you learn it slow, and you lose the track. So you have to be intentional about what you want to learn and just stick to a plan. Having a personal development plan is very, very useful when you're starting off, and having those ideas or the achievements that you want to make, have a 3-month achievement plan and say, this is what I want to learn in this next 3 months. That really is helpful. And to be honest, what Esther also said, to have a mentor, it's really, really useful to have a mentor. And also being in organizations and communities like yours, and where you have all the other people around you who will support you, and guide you on, if you get stuck, this is what you do. I think that is the most important thing. And yeah, just keep the curiosity, but do not get overwhelmed. That's the biggest trap, because if you get overwhelmed, you lose your confidence, you get that imposter syndrome just comes down on you so hard, and you think, I'm not good enough, why am I in this room? But you know what? Not everybody knows everything. Just learn those 1-2 things you need to do to get your job done, and in time, that will build your confidence. That will stem away the imposter syndrome, and you'll get more confident. And then you can learn all the other 100 things that are out there. So yeah, that's what I'll probably say.
That's a great piece of advice. That is a really great piece of advice. Amazing. And Dowie, do you have anything else to add? Is there a piece of advice you would give someone starting out?
I mean, it's tough because I think both Tura and Esther have called out two of the things which I probably would have said are the most important things to say. But maybe just building a little bit on what Tula said and kind of identifying what your passion is. One of the things that I really look for when we're looking at recruiting engineers is when someone talks about a language or a technology they work with, do they show real passion for that? And rather than kind of just going, oh, well, this must be something that I have to learn, so I'm just going to do it. And I really hate it, but I'm going to do it anyway. You know, find your passion and like Tula said, you know, focus on that instead of trying to do everything. And again, following on from what Tula said, you know, it's okay to not know stuff, you know, be open and honest with your peers. You know, if you share with them that you don't know something, it might be, you might feel embarrassed about it, but that's okay. I still today, like, I still basically say to my team, like, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Can you please educate me? I think it's really important because if you don't share that with people, then they don't know that you don't know something. And then potentially that could introduce frustrations if you're really struggling with something and they're like, oh, why is so-and-so taking so long with this thing again? I thought they knew how to do it. And you learn more then that way. You know, you really have the opportunity to improve your knowledge and become an expert in your field.
Amazing, amazing. It sounds like you guys are in a great environment where you can be open and say that you don't know everything, and you've got a great support system around you to help you learn and grow. But that's brilliant, amazing. If anybody has any questions about working to CTM, we'll answer them in the Q&A later on. But moving on, it would be great to know a little bit more about the technology used at Compare the Market. So I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but all of you are in different teams, right? Yeah, wow, already 3 teams. So I don't know whether if we start with Tula, if you could just tell me what do the technology teams do at Compare the Market?
So it's the range is just amazing now. To be honest, I don't even know what other teams do anymore. So I've got an idea of what they do, but what I know for me from the teams that I've worked with so far is the product teams, so like the car insurance team or the home insurance team. So what they work on is we work now ourselves. So we used to have, when Compare the Market started, one monolith big repository of everything there that ran Compare the Market website, but we have moved off from that into microservices. So now each product team or team owns their own microservices that builds their product. So what the teams then do is they take care of those services. So in my team, we have, I think we've got about 13 services we have, but they are mostly Node.js services. We use a bit of Rabbit. We use also, some teams use C#, some teams use a whole lot of languages, because I was talking to Esther and she was telling me, oh, we use Kotlin. I was like, what is Kotlin? So that's how big Compare the Market has grown, that I'm not even aware of the other technologies that other teams use. So yeah, it's quite a big range. And most of us now, so the other thing that we've done in Compare the Market since I started is we used to host all of our services or products on premise. So we had like a big servers that used to run that, but now we've gone to AWS. So that's one of the biggest, to be honest, one of the best things that we've done. And yeah, so that's probably what my team does.
Amazing. And then Esther, correct me if I'm wrong, you're in the Android team, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what technologies do you guys use in your team?
So we mainly use Kotlin and a bit of Java, just because that's basically the main language for Android nowadays. There's a few other languages that kind of existing from like legacy software, but because I'm quite new, I didn't have to write those languages, and there's a reason why we're migrating towards Kotlin. And we just use like a range of systems like GitHub, Git, Jira, things kind of I think other teams probably use as well to keep things collaborative and in order to like peer review and keep track of where we are generally and holistically within our team.
Amazing. And then Dowie, what about you? What does your team use?
Yeah, so we use quite a range of technologies across the data stack. So primarily our languages for development are Python and Java, but we do also have some stuff built with Scala as well. And then, as Esther mentioned there, we have other kind of peripheral tools that we use as well for development, such as something called GoCD, which is like a continuous integration server. So it builds our code basically and deploys it to the to basically production, to live. And then in terms of other things, we use SQL. We actually have, as Tula said, for the most part, moved all of our kind of services into AWS, and we use things like AWS Redshift for our data warehouse, but we also have a legacy system that still runs off SQL Server estate. And then most of our infrastructure as well uses a system called Kafka, and that is basically processing things like the website. When a customer goes on the website, they go and click on things, they get a quote for a particular product that produces events, and they get sent through to Kafka, and then that distributes them down into our data stores basically. I think the only other thing to mention, and there's so many other things I could probably go on about, but I'll bore you all, is something called Terraform, and that's something we use to essentially write our infrastructure as code. So it's like a way of building cloud environments so that we can run things in AWS. I think that's probably the main things that we use.
And there's so many there, considering you're all over different teams. That was quite a few. That was a handful there. So that's amazing. That's amazing. One question that I wanted to ask was if you have seen any interesting trends within the industry, and if so, what were they? Like, I don't know, should we go to Esther first? And in 5 months, have you seen any interesting trends so far?
Yeah, but it's not really to do with Compare the Market, just because starting out I've subscribed to like articles and talks and stuff, but one that interested me because it wasn't really with Compare the Market to my knowledge was like wearable technology, like smartwatches, because it's becoming like very integrated in the things we're doing in life, like seeing people talk into like their watch or use it to like pay for things. So I'm wondering like how far can it go, because there's huge potential, and like what could we do on such a small screen. So I've been watching things like that, which I find quite interesting.
That's amazing. That definitely is a trend that I would love to see where it goes. What can you do with your little Apple Watch or your smart device on your wrist? Dowie, what about you? Have you seen any interesting trends emerge over recently?
Yeah, I think that one of the interesting things for me is around all of these different companies that are spinning up outside of the big kind of 3 cloud providers. So AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure. You've got some other kind of organizations now popping up that are smaller, and they're focusing on more specific things. So companies like Snowflake, for example, that are focusing on providing an experience to store data and allow you to do really interesting things with that data. And I think that we're only going to see more of this, rather than a company like AWS, which obviously has so many different services across its estate, and I'm sure they will continue to innovate and develop these services. But smaller organizations have a lot more opportunity to kind of zero in on things and improve on them, rather than being in a big organization like Amazon that are trying to do all of these things and do them well. So I'm excited to see what other organizations come out of the ether to allow us to try interesting things.
Amazing. And what about you, Tula? Have you seen anything? Any interesting trends?
I think in the last couple of years, I think in the last 2-3 years, we've seen the growth of use of data in decision making. I mean, to be honest, I think we didn't have a data team 3-4 years ago. We didn't even know we needed one, but now we've found in the industry data has become such a big thing for a lot of companies, for any kind of business, because now we've realized that with data, you can sort of target the right kind of customers. You've got enough information to, even before the customer knows what they need, something you already know from the data we have. We've got such a huge pool of data to use. I think probably the use of data and AI going forward in our lives, in our everyday lives, it seems to be encroaching a lot. And I think the other thing that's more recent I've noticed is the move to working virtually. The pandemic has really made that come faster than we were expecting. But I think what this is going to do is going to change our work-life balance. You know, it's going to mean, you know, you can work for any company anywhere in the world. Now it's just going to shatter those geographic boundaries that we've always had. And this is, I think, is going to be a good thing for a lot of people, because you can now be flexible about what time you work and where you work. So I think this is an interesting thing to watch. I mean, a lot of companies are having these conversations at the moment. Do we go back to offices? Do we work virtually? What's the balance? So I think that is going to be a good thing. So yeah, we'll watch that space.
It definitely is one area to watch, kind of what kind of our working world will look like soon. I definitely think that now is a time that employers are starting to think, right, we're going to get people back in the office. Should we keep them at home? Should we do a mix? So I think over the next few months, we'll start to see kind of what the new normal will look like. So it's definitely interesting. Just a reminder, guys, if you've got any questions, and guys on YouTube as well, I can see your questions coming through, but if you have any questions on the technology use across all of the teams at Compare the Market, do submit them in and we can answer them later in the Q&A. But before we do that, it would be nice to touch on some of the diversity and inclusion incentives that you have at Compare the Market. So Dowie, to first start with you, what is Compare the Market doing differently to address diversity and inclusion?
Sure, and I'll try and not cover everything here, so I give Tula and Esther a chance to basically cover something off. One of the things, it's all right. One of the things that we've done in specifically in data engineering recently is we have started working with a new bootcamp organizer that's specifically focusing on representing individuals from backgrounds that may not find it very easy to get into coding. And this company is called Generation. And they've been really awesome at providing us with individuals that are really good engineers in terms of their ways of thinking, but perhaps they might not have had the money to go to university, or perhaps it was just something that they didn't even think that was a viable career for them. So that is something that I'm continuing to push in data engineering, and also in the wider tech teams in Compare the Market. And we've also, as Esther said, there's a lot of kind of diversity and inclusivity work groups happening in Compare the Market as well. But I won't say anything about that, just in case Esther or Tula want to say something about it.
Go on, Esther.
Sorry, my computer froze for a second. But yes, Esther, please go.
Yeah, I think from like just even when I first started, you have to do like e-modules just to learn about the company. So aside from learning about Compare the Market and everything within it, there's a whole module just on diversity and inclusion with like an exam at the end. And that was like before I even had my first day. That was in my induction. So I was like, oh, this is like something that they really find important, and they're not just saying it, like saying it, they want me to know about it, and they want all workers to know about it. And like Darian mentioned, like there's a lot of rooms and a lot of initiatives going on. I find that we often celebrate or make aware, like other people aware of different cultural celebrations or different days. We have a lot of awareness days for a whole like range of things that I hadn't heard of, and I'm like, oh, I know what it is now. And I think we do take part in a lot of events, and we have a lot of discussions on how we can further push it, whether it's a blog post, whether it's an event like this. And I think it's really good because it's been consistent since I joined. So it's not really faltered or kind of changed speed. It's only kind of increased. I'm just seeing more of it. So I think that's a really good thing about Compare the Market.
Amazing, amazing. Well, that's great to hear. That's really good to hear. And Tula, anything from you?
I think they've both covered the initiatives that Compare the Market has been involved with. I think in general, in the industry, in the last year, that's when we've seen more activity around this, which is a good thing. For a long time, I think we've always done the talk as an industry, you know, we are working towards diversity, but now I think companies are becoming more intentional, and hopefully all these initiatives that we have can deliver the results. Because at the moment, I think I was looking at one statistic where they're saying Black females in 2019 in the IT, they had 0.3%, and they're saying, oh, the jump is now gone to 0.7% in 2020. I mean, that's still, you know, that's a crying shame still, you know, but I think there is quite a room to improve. I think people are becoming positively intentional, including diversity, whether it's just for Black people or any other minority groups. I think it's a good thing. I think also the other thing that I've noticed with this route to coming into software engineering, like Dai was saying, traditionally it was a CS degree, you had to have computer science, but now because we're making it an apprenticeship start, so you're coming in as a junior, and all these boot camps that have sprung up are going to be a good pipeline for diverse and minority groups to come in. So I'm hoping, you know, in the next few years we're going to see a different you know, color in the room, that we will have a different representation. Because I remember when I started, you know, in Compare the Market, I think I was probably one of the first Black people a long time ago, and I was one for quite a bit. But now I find, you know, I get excited when I see, oh, there's Esther, oh, there's somebody else, which is a really good thing, you know. I think we do need diversity within the company, because the more people we have on the table making decisions about the software that we build, there's a representation of the population that we build the software for. So I think it's a good thing. So hopefully, you know, we'll see growth within this, and it's not just going to be another talk that goes on in the industry.
Amazing. Well, hopefully we are moving in the right direction. From going from 0.3 to 0.7% is a move. It's not as great as we'd like, but it's definitely a move in the right direction. Just on that point, actually, and this is a question really for Tula and for Esther, what is it like being a Black woman working within software engineering? If we go to you, Esther, first, what's your experience been so far as being a Black woman in the industry?
So far, it's been a pretty good experience. Obviously, I've been working from home, but I haven't felt kind of awkward, you know, working. It is kind of like I'm maybe one of two Black females in a room or a team, but it hasn't really held me back or made me feel any kind of way. I'm very happy to be part of communities where we're kind of championing and trying to push more Black females towards careers in tech and making them feel kind of inclusive. So I'm very happy that things like this exist. So it does make me quite proud that we are doing this and supporting each other. I think it's a great time to do it as well. Everyone's at home, so everyone kind of has some time to kind of sit or listen to talks like this, or kind of do some research. Within Compare the Market specifically, I feel like my team was like, they're very inclusive. And even though I am, I think, the only Black female within my smaller sub team, my team is diverse within itself. So there's a lot of females and a lot of different ethnicities, other than just like, you know, like a typical like white male, or, you know, what people say is the majority. So in that sense, it's diverse, and it's good that we have offices in other countries and different places, because I get to talk to people that English isn't their first language, or don't have UK culture in them. So yeah, it's been quite interesting.
Amazing. It's great to hear that you're in a diverse team, but hopefully as you get as you're there for longer, you'll see more people who look like you within the team. What about you, Tula? As someone who's been in the industry for a little while, what's your experience been being a Black woman within software engineering?
I think speaking generally from an industry point of view, I mean, when I started about almost 10 years ago, I'd go to a conference and, never mind being a Black woman, I was just one of the few women there. So it was always a bit awkward. So you had to learn to just lose all that self-consciousness and try and network with people. So yes, so for a long time, I think it's been really one of those things that you think, oh my goodness, I'm the only one in the room. But I think in the last few years, now I can say within my team, there's quite a lot of women comparing to what it used to be. I mean, there used to be teams when I started with one woman in there or two women in there. So now I think, to be honest, we have quite a good representation of women in tech. I think then coming back to being a Black women in tech, then that is another dimension of minority group. You're like, oh my goodness, how many Black women do we have? Like the statistic I was sharing earlier, there's still quite a low number of women in technology. But I think all that is due to the pipeline of getting people into the industry. I think a lot of it is maybe the lack of visibility of role models. It's not that we do not have role models. We do have a lot of women in tech who are doing really amazing things, but I think visibility of those women to younger girls and boys in school at an earlier age to know, I can also be part of this industry, I've got place on the table in that industry would make a big difference. So yeah, I think it's been a challenge, a growth. So I think, to be honest, now I feel like we are making progress. Hopefully, in time as we go, we see a lot of people coming in and having more diverse teams, which can only be a good thing for any team, to be honest. Yeah.
Amazing. Let's hope that growth continues. And just before I ask my last question, thank you for those who've already asked questions in the chat. We will get to those shortly, but this is a chance for you to start drafting some questions. And again, on YouTube, I can see them coming through, so please do ask any questions if you do have them. But lastly, I think we touched on it ever so slightly, but what critical changes do you feel need to be made and addressed around the lack of diversity within the industry? Esther, if we go with you first.
I think it's kind of the modes of recruitment. I think we're moving towards, a better direction, but even in terms of, getting people with a background in computer science, like I think, I'm not sure if it was Derry or Tula that said it, but like some people couldn't afford to go to uni. Some people didn't go to a good school, so they couldn't get into uni, for example. So their mode of getting into tech is kind of, there's only one route, which might be an apprenticeship or a boot camp or, a diverse, a recruitment agency that focuses in diversity. So I think it's critical that we kind of, understand that, well, people at a high level understand that, there's a lot of ways to get into tech, and there's a lot of people that have a lot of valuable knowledge that may not have, the credentials as you would expect to, see on paper. So I think just kind of, empowering recruiters, like if you have a company, making sure they understand that there are a diverse range of people and you can't just prejudge based on the grade or the uni or what the credentials say. So kind of finding those avenues to be able to, get in contact with those people and let them know that there is a place for them in these companies.
Amazing. Thank you, Esther. And then Tula, is there anything from you, anything you want to add?
I think the changes that I probably think we need to look into, I think for me, the most important one would be the pipeline of getting people into technology. I think now it's better. I mean, when I started in technology, a lot of people had degrees, and now it's changing to you can start in a boot camp, which is great. But I think we can go even lower in schools. When kids are in primary school, you can start coding clubs, and that gets them interested, and they start learning that, you don't have to be a consumer of technology. You can make your own games and all things like that. So that's already in their mind opens a new world that they're not aware of. So I think if we go down that route, we're probably going to make a change. So we're raising people who are already aware, because I think software engineering or coding is, in the future, is probably going to be a skill that everybody needs. I mean, when computers first started, there were people who used to know how to use a computer, or when you had typist people. Now we all do those jobs. So I think coding is probably going to be one of those skills that are going to be needed in the future. So I think if we start teaching kids at an earlier age how to do coding, or, you know, just giving them those games, or just the exposure is an important thing. I think the other thing is role models, which I touched on earlier. You can't be what you can't see. If kids have never seen somebody who does that job, they don't even know that job exists. But if they see somebody doing the job, so what I've done a lot is, a lot of my friends' kids, every time I go visiting their house, like, you know what, you can come into technology. Do you know, I was like, you know, go to this website in YouTube, you can learn how to program, you know, there's some things that you can start. So just getting them interested and getting them in the knowledge that this is not something that is a big barrier for them to get into. They can start learning. They can learn at home, because now we've got YouTube, you know, you've got any kind of course in there. There's so many resources that people can learn from. So I think it's just, you know, nudging people in the direction of learning and exposing them to this technology side. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And then Dowie, have you got anything to wrap this up on how we can address the lack of diversity and what critical changes you feel need to be made?
Yeah, and I think it's not so much a critical change, because as Esther and Tura both touched on, I think things are much improved from where they were when I was first starting out in software engineering. But it's to kind of continue to support organizations like Coding Black Females or CodeBar, or any of these organizations that are really focusing on, and, you know, you've got people like yourself, Temu, that are doing this in their own time, you know, because they think this is a really important thing to drive. And we need to keep allowing individuals like you and organizations like Compare the Market and other big tech companies need to continue supporting these organizations and helping them thrive. And to add on to that as well, I think it's so important for organizations like Compare the Market and other tech organizations at the top. So as Tura said, at the executive level, they need to buy into the value of driving diversity and inclusivity. And we certainly have that now in Compare the Market, the work stream that Tula mentioned earlier. You know, we've got our chief data officer kind of heading that up and helping us drive all of that. So we've really got that buy-in. And it's so important, I think, that businesses continue to do that.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. And that comes to the end of my question. So now it's a chance to open up the questions to everybody in the audience. We've had a few come through. First one I'm going to ask is kind of around upskilling yourself. So one question that has come through is, how do you keep your skills current and up to date? And what resources do you use? As someone who's quite new into the industry, how do you keep yourself and your skills up to date, and what resources are you using at the moment?
I think Tula mentioned earlier having a personal development plan, because that is something that you always need to update. Once you've hit the goal, you need to put a new goal. You can put things you've used or things you want to learn. I think because I'm kind of new, having that book that I mentioned earlier was a great way. Like, it's a really long book, so even now I haven't gotten through all of it because I'm actually working at the same time and doing my apprenticeship and my exams and portfolio. But I think kind of keeping the spirit alive, like you need to always learn in technology. You can't be stagnant. You, like Derry said, he moved to like a new role, do you know what I mean? So I think kind of always looking for like the next thing, or not too much, but kind of just keeping yourself up to date. So for example, there's like testing software and plugins that we use in my team, but then we realized there was a new version, and as a team we all kind of did a session to see how that worked and kind of update our software to use that. So I think even doing that in your own time, just kind of looking around and seeing what there is, subscribing to, you know, Medium, you know, people on Medium or articles is a really good way, because that comes in your emails daily. So I get like a notification every morning from Medium with things to do with software development that you can read through. And I think also kind of, like I said, having a mentor is also good, because it's usually they have a level of skill that's above yours. So there's always something new to learn from them. Even if you didn't know that you didn't know it, they might just mention something that you have never heard of before.
Amazing. Well, thank you for those tips. Dowie, have you got any suggestions on how you keep your skills up to date and what resources you're using that you find really helpful?
Yeah, sure. I think it's important to find what medium works well for you in terms of learning. So if you're someone that likes to read, then, go for books. If you're someone that learns better from watching videos, do that. Or, if you're someone that actually learns better from working with someone else and collaborate, like as Esther said, find a mentor. And I think it's really important as well I think there's a lot of pressure on software engineers to be basically spending all of their time outside of work learning new things. And if you're not like doing 5 projects outside of work and building like the new Facebook, actually Facebook is so old now, isn't it? I'm showing my age, sorry. It's like you're not doing enough. And I think it's important to recognize that actually it's okay to basically not do that all the time. Maybe, take like 5-10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes out of your day, as Esther said, to read a Medium post and try and learn something new, and then bring that back into work and speak with your colleagues and try and find an organization that's going to support you with that learning in work, and understand that you might not have all of the time in the world outside of work to do your learning.
Amazing. And Tula, have you got anything to add there? Any tips?
I think I'd also like to highlight that in Compare the Market, we've got PDP days, which is one day in the month where you can take time out to do your learning. So I think in my team, we do not specify what you're going to learn. So you take that day out and, like I was speaking about the £150. So you can use that day to read your books. You can use that day to do your online course. So it is very well supported, the learning and development. So also the other thing that I'd probably say is, keeping that curiosity is very key in technology, because it's very easy to get left behind, but also being cautious not to chase every new thing that comes out. So be intentional in what you chase. So like Medium, Esther mentioned Medium. I've got Medium as well sending me messages. So that's one thing that I'm like, if I'm bored, I'm just going to go there and read. They are very short articles, 2 minutes, 3-minute reads, and they're very informative. So some of them can follow up after that and look into the article that somebody's spoken. But the other one that was surprising for me that someone recommended was Twitter. It's like, go on Twitter and follow industry experts. So there might be someone who's really good in JavaScript. So you can follow that person and they keep tutoring stuff on. So I find them also as little small bites of learning new things. And they also post on, this has been the difficult thing, this is a bug, and this is what I found. Some of them are really funny, but it's also a good way to learn. So yeah, I think conferences are another thing that I find. Well, now we don't have conferences a lot, they're all virtual. But what I find with conferences, there's a wide range of topics that they talk about. So at the end of the day, what I find is I got there and everybody is talking about new different things that are coming in the field. You get curious about them. You don't have to go and learn all of them, but just that awareness of what is out there is also very good, because sometimes you might need to solve a problem and you'll remember, oh, somebody talked about this technology and it does this. So it's really helpful to just stay curious, but don't dive deep into everything. Just, be intentional about what you want to dive deep into, and just having that specific thing that you want to be an expert in is a good thing. So in the team, people be like, if you want to talk about React, talk to James or Jane or, Esther. That is a good thing. Being very good in something and also a general, in everything else.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, all of you, for those tips. Keeping on the theme of self-development and training, we've had a question come in around what training is available at Compare the Market for juniors joining the company. So also tell us kind of what you've experienced, what training you've utilised so far. That would be great.
Initially I had to, get used to the code base. So I had sessions with people in my team to kind of introduce me to the code base and how it works and, how it all links together. But one of the important things that me and my mentor set up together on my PDP was identifying like relevant people who were really good or like experts in certain things. So whether it was testing or whether it was continuous integration, version control, we set up meetings with them and would have like an hour just to go through it and talk about it. Some of them I had never heard of before, like the things I was talking about, and some things were things I had known about, but I didn't know in that much depth, which really was, useful when it came to actually coding and picking up my own tickets. I think juniors also have outside of my team we have induction, like 2 weeks of induction, one before you start and one kind of in the first few weeks of starting. I think everyone I don't think it's just juniors, I think everyone that kind of starts at Compare the Market gets that second induction that I had, which kind of really goes through like the company, but in terms of software development, our like strategic goals and kind of why we do what we do, which kind of helps when you're actually creating the code and knowing like why there's certain deadlines, for example.
Amazing. And then Dowie, as a manager, what other opportunities have you seen available at Compare the Market?
So yeah, I mean, look, learning is really important to us at Compare the Market. So it doesn't matter whether you're a junior or you're a technical lead, or you're someone who's coming in at a manager level, so you're going to have direct reports. We have this whole system called My Development, where there's like in-house learning courses you can take, and they regularly run these courses. They used to be in person, obviously they're not anymore now, but they'll be on loads of range of things, like how to have a good career conversations with your team members, and loads of different things like that. And as well as kind of, I've got a more recent example. So I mentioned that we worked with Generation, and we had 2 brand new people come and join us. And what we did with them is that for the first month, we just had them do some training courses around the different technologies that we use for example, Kafka. And we would have them build a mini project. So it'd be something that doesn't have the pressure of kind of working on an actual story that maybe goes to production. And this isn't through a lack of trust, but it's more to kind of give them an opportunity to learn as much as they can. And then, as soon as they feel they're ready, they can start getting involved with regular sprint work and delivering to whatever project they might be at that time. But I would really like to highlight that the mentorship thing that Esther mentioned is super important, and I think that's a really helpful thing to have a kind of organization that really embraces that culture of making sure you find people that are prepared to be mentors to others and aren't just kind of the stereotypical person who's like, no, I'm just going to go in a corner and do my coding. I don't want to help anyone else. I'm good at my job, so that's all I need to do. That's certainly not the kind of attitude that we embrace in Compare the Market.
Amazing. I've actually had a question come in, which I think would be a nice kind of segue here, about self-paced learning and someone who's come through like an apprenticeship or a boot camp. The person has asked whether you think that someone who is learning by themselves is at a slight disadvantage for someone who is going through a boot camp. So would you be able to answer that question? I don't know whether it would be best to stick with you, Dowie, on that one.
I think it's a hard one to answer, right? Because it really depends on the individual circumstances. I think you're naturally going to get some things through a boot camp that you wouldn't get if you were doing self-directed learning. Like, their syllabus is going to be a lot more structured and a lot more focused. You're going to have people that are doing the exact same thing as you that you can talk to, and you can kind of discuss problems and things like that. But at the same time, there's so many resources out there now that if you are kind of following, say, using Udemy or something like that to do a training course, there's a Q&A platform on that for every video, so you can ask a question. You can get involved with like communities like Stack Overflow and all of those communities and kind of get and talk to your peers there. And I think there are much more opportunities now to and it's going to be more effort. There's no taking away from that. If you're part of a boot camp, it's a lot easier to do that stuff. But I think if you find the right communities, you can still get that opportunity to discuss what you've learned in a self-directed way. It's just going to be a bit more difficult, I think.
Amazing. We have had a question come through about apprenticeship opportunities at CTM. I know, Esther, you've come through on an apprenticeship as well, but can one of you answer what the process is of becoming an apprentice at CTM, and what other opportunities apart from software engineering that are available within the tech team? Would anyone like to answer? I'm not sure who.
I think Esther's the one who's coming through the apprenticeship here.
I can probably speak on like my journey through to my team, and then maybe one of the other two can kind of give a broader one of the other things we have in place, because I know it's not just makers. But in terms of that journey, it's basically the recruitment is not just with Compare the Market, it's with makers as well. So you have interviews with people, representatives from both sides of it. And you start with a 3-month boot camp with makers, which is kind of like what Dawi was touching on, where you have a community of people, a cohort that are doing what you're doing, and you can ask questions and someone's leading the way, and it's quite structured. And then you start your placement. It's a permanent role, but it's a placement because the first year is part of the apprenticeship, because that it finishes then when you get your qualification. And makers support you through that. So you have your exams and you have your portfolio, you have regular meetings with your placement coach. And I think it's really good at Compare the Market because they give you time. I get a day a week to just focus solely on my apprenticeship work, because I do have to write out what I've done in the week. And, it's kind of like writing an essay at the end of the week. So it's kind of hard to try and balance that with other things and, revising for exams. I think in Compare the Market, it was really good that they, did that, because it was like you have a guaranteed role. You're not as scared coming in because you've done like something before you started, even if it's not specifically Android or mobile, because people in my bootcamp that came to Compare the Market are in all sorts of teams. There's no one else in my team that was in my makers cohort at CTM, and there was like 11 of us. So, I think it's good. There's a wide range of teams to join.
Amazing. And would anybody be able to add on kind of the other opportunities within the tech team for apprentices?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is watch out for vacancies within PGL, because I think periodically they post the apprenticeship recruitment vacancies. So if you watch that space, then there's opportunities to come in. I think what I would say on the previous question, where a person just does their own learning at home, I think what we probably need to do is you sort of need a proof of what you've done. If you build a portfolio, is a good way of keeping track and also showing what you're capable of doing. Your GitHub repo or a website where you've got links to little projects that you've done is a good way of showing what you do. So it is certainly a route in, but like Dawi said, it might be a bit difficult to prove what you can do, but it's not a closed door. You always have opportunities, if you've got the right skills.
Thank you very much, Tula, for that. Dawi, do you have anything to add on there?
No, I don't think so.
No problem,
Amazingly.
no problem. We have one last question before I round up today, and that is come through from the audience, and it's asking at Compare the Market, within this software engineering team, what is expected from a junior developer coming through a boot camp? So maybe if I go to Esther first, who is coming through the boot camp.
I think a good thing was that there wasn't a lot of pressure on me. I think more of the talks I had was advice on how to, improve, or how I can, learn more and learn kind of what we're doing. There was no pressure on me to pick up tickets. I just did that when I felt ready. I even started pairing when I felt ready, because they said you can just work for your book for a couple of weeks if you want to, because everyone learns differently. Some people just want to learn the knowledge and then start doing practical things, and some people like to learn as they go. I think the expectations differ depending on the team you're in, but I think Compare the Market are very good at making people feel like comfortable and not kind of trying to scare you off, well, in my experience anyway. I think as you grow, your expectations also grow, because they kind of see what you can do, and then the pace you grow can also determine how much they push you, or how much they think you can learn.
Amazing. Tula, have you got anything to add on that?
I think for a junior joining the team, to be honest, I don't think, to be realistically, no one is expecting you to start delivering stuff and put stuff in production the next day. I think there is that expectation that you're still learning, and it takes a while to really upskill yourself enough to start making changes. But the good thing is we'll hold your hand. I think a lot of teams are very good at holding your hand, and in our team, what we do, we've got 2 apprenticeships at the moment. So what we do is whatever story they want to work on, we say, these are the tickets we need to play today. Is there anything interesting that you want to work on? And then you can pair with somebody working on that, which is a good way of introducing somebody into a system. Because what then that does is, even for me, as someone who's been in the team for a while, it's a good way to, impart that knowledge to that person. It also solidifies my knowledge of the system as well. So I think it's both ways, because you can't look at it as, oh my goodness, I've got to, teach this junior, it's going to take time. But I think we have to look at it positively as, it's an opportunity for me to grow as well while I teach that person, and for them to also, learn about what we do. And the good thing, I think, what you also have to think about if you're a junior is, don't expect that person knows everything when they pick a ticket. They're also still going to have to dig around to find a solution. So don't feel the pressure to have a solution as well. It's good to make your contributions, and don't be scared to put your own opinions on what you should do when you work on that. Is, let's just all have a chat and try and get this thing delivered. But there's no pressure, I think, on juniors to get, fit running and delivering stuff right away.
That's brilliant. It sounds like there's a lot of support, and you're not just kind of left from day one to your own devices. So that sounds really, really good. Dowie, is anything you would like to add to that before we wrap up today?
Yeah, just something quickly, I think, is as I touched on earlier, passion and enthusiasm for what you're doing. I think those are probably the only things that we would expect. Nobody's expecting you to be an expert from day one. If you are, that's awesome. But just like really showing that you want to work with the team and you want to learn, and you're really keen to kind of collaborate with the team and basically help deliver things in an excellent way is the most important thing.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for those tips, and thank you very much for the whole evening. It's been brilliant to get an insight on what it's like to work within the tech team at Compare the Market. So thank you, Dowie, thank you, Tula, thank you, Esther, and thank you guys in the audience for listening. I just quickly want to wrap up and again say thank you. We're going to be sending around a feedback, a really quick survey for you guys to fill in, just to let us know how you felt this event went. We want to hear your thoughts so that we can improve our events moving forward. Get involved, join our community, join us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter. There's so many different platforms you can follow us on now. But thank you again, guys. And have a lovely evening, and hopefully we'll see you at another event soon. But thank you all, and thank you, Tula, Esther and Dowie, very much. Have a great evening.